Hey there, my dear friends. It's Eva, your old pal from Eufaula, Alabama, cozied up on my front porch with a glass of sweet tea and a heart full of stories. At 65, I've seen a few things: sunsets over Lake Eufaula, church picnics with peach cobbler, and the kind of heartaches that teach you who you are. Y'all know me, always ready to share a laugh or a tear, like we're sitting in my kitchen, swapping tales over biscuits. Today I've got a story that's close to my soul, one about love, betrayal, and finding your strength when the world says you're done. It's for us, the women who've raised families, weathered storms, and still bloom like magnolias in spring. So, pull up a chair, honey, and let's talk heart to heart, just us girls. Ready? Here we go. The morning sun spills over Macon, Georgia, like honey, catching the yellow daisies I planted along the fence and turning them to gold. I'm sitting on my new front porch, a chipped white rocking chair creaking under me, a glass of jasmine tea gone cold in my hand. Across the narrow strip of grass, my old house stands quiet, its red brick glowing in the light, the magnolia tree in the yard, the one Tom and I planted when Nathan was just a baby, sways gently, its leaves whispering secrets I used to know by heart. Nathan's there, inside, probably sipping coffee with Lauren, thinking they've won, but they haven't, not yet, not ever. I'm Ellie Harper. Ellie to anyone who's ever shared a slice of my peach cobbler, but at 68, I've learned a thing or two about what it means to stand your ground. Honey, I didn't plan to be here, on this porch, staring at the home I scrubbed clean for decades, the home my own son took from me. But life has a way of teaching you lessons, and mine taught me this when someone tries to bury you. You don't just lie down, you grow, and I've grown roots deeper than that magnolia tree, right here, in the house next door. It was 4 days ago when I signed the papers. My hand shook, not from fear, but from the weight of what I was doing. Vanessa Brooks, my lawyer, sat across the table, her eyes sharp but kind. You sure about this? Ellie, she asked, sliding the deed toward me. The house was small, a one-story cottage with a sagging porch and a rosebush out front, but it faced Nathan's kitchen window, like a mirror he couldn't turn away from. I picked up the pen, my fingers steadying as I wrote my name. I've never been surer, I said, and I meant it. That afternoon, I moved in, not with much, just a suitcase, my old rocking chair, and a box of paints I hadn't touched in years. The neighbors peeked from their windows, probably whispering about poor Ellie Harper and her crazy plan. But I didn't care. I swept the porch, hung a wind chime that tinkled in the breeze, and planted those daisies, their bright faces nodding at me like old friends. Then I waited. I knew Nathan would see me sooner or later, and when he did, I wanted him to feel every second of it. It happened yesterday morning, just as the church bells rang out from First Baptist down the street. I was on the porch, pruning the rosebush, when Nathan stepped outside. He wore a wrinkled t-shirt and gym shorts, a trash bag in one hand, his phone in the other. He looked tired, the kind of tired that settles into a man when he realizes the life he's built isn't his. He froze when he saw me, his eyes wide, like he'd seen a ghost. I set the pruning shears down, wiped my hands on my apron, and smiled, not a big smile, just enough to let him know I wasn't going anywhere. Mom. His voice cracked, like he was 12 again, asking me to check for monsters under the bed. What? What are you doing here? I leaned against the porch railing, the wood warm under my palms. Living. Nathan. This is my house now. He dropped the trash bag, the plastic rustling as it hit the ground. You bought the house next door. Why I tilted my head, letting the word hang between us. You took my home, Nathan, You locked me away in that place, thinking I'd fade like an old photograph. But I'm still here, and I'm not going anywhere. His face flushed, a mix of shame and anger. Mom, it wasn't like that. We were trying to help you. You weren't safe. Safe. I cut him off, my voice low but sharp, like the edge of a kitchen knife. You didn't ask me what I wanted. You didn't call, didn't visit. You signed papers that said I was losing my mind. Nathan, you took my keys, my bank account, my dignity. And you call that help? He opened his mouth, then closed it, his eyes darting to the ground. I could see Lauren's shadow behind the kitchen curtains, watching, but she didn't come out. Typical. She always let Nathan carry the weight of her plans. Mom, He trailed off, rubbing the back of his neck. Can we talk? Inside? I shook my head. This porch is fine. Say what you need to say. He looked at me, his eyes searching for the mother who used to forgive him with a hug and a slice of cobbler. But that mother was gone, or at least she'd learned to love herself as much as she loved him. I didn't mean to hurt you, he said finally. I thought it was the right thing. I took a slow sip of tea, letting the jasmine linger on my tongue. You didn't just hurt me, Nathan. You tried to erase me. But I'm still here. And this house, this porch, these daisies, they're mine. Every time you step outside, you'll see me. And you'll remember. He stood there, silent, the church bells fading into the distance. I turned, walked to my front door, and paused. This is my piece. Nathan, I said over my shoulder. Don't knock unless you're ready to earn your way back into it. I closed the door. The soft click louder than any shout. Inside, I leaned against the wall, my heart pounding. Not with anger, but with something else, pride, maybe, or the quiet thrill of reclaiming what was mine. I looked out the window, saw Nathan pick up the trash bag and shuffle back inside. His shoulders slumped, the curtains twitched again, and I knew Lauren was there. Probably fuming, but I didn't care. For the first time in months, I felt like Ellie Harper again, not a burden, not a ghost, but a woman who'd fought her way back to the light. How did I get here? You ask, from a cold room in a nursing home, with bleach-scented walls and a bed that wasn't mine, to this porch, with daisies blooming and a future I could shape. It's a long story, honey. One that starts with love and ends with strength. But to tell it right, I need to take you back to the days when Nathan was my whole world, when I thought a mother's love could hold a family together forever. I was wrong about that. But I learned something better sometimes. The love you need most is the one you give yourself. Let me take you back to 1978, when Tom and I first moved to Macon. We were young, broke, and so in love it hurt. We bought that red brick house, the one Nathan's living in now, with a loan we could barely afford. The magnolia tree was just a sapling then, its roots fragile but full of promise. This tree'll grow with our boy. Tom said, his arm around me as we watched the sunset from the porch. Nathan was barely 2, toddling around with a stick, laughing like the world was his. I'd sit there, listening to Johnny Cash on the radio, dreaming of the life we'd build. Those were the days when love felt like enough. I think about those days a lot, especially now, sitting here with the morning breeze carrying the scent of jasmine. I remember Nathan at 5, running through the yard with a daisy he'd picked, shouting, "Mom, look, it's for you." His smile was brighter than any flower, and I'd tucked that daisy behind my ear, feeling like the luckiest woman alive. How could that boy grow into a man who'd lock me away? How could he forget the mother who gave him everything? But I'm getting ahead of myself. The story isn't just about Nathan, or Lauren, or even the house. It's about me, about the woman I was, the woman I became, and the woman I'm still becoming. It's about the nights I cried in that nursing home, thinking I'd lost everything, and the mornings I woke up, pen in hand, planning to take it all back. It's about Caleb, my grandson, whose laughter reminds me why I keep going. And it's about you, honey, because I know you've got your own battles, your own moments when the world tried to tell you you're not enough. So, pull up a chair, pour yourself some tea, and let me tell you how I got here. It's not a short story, but it's one worth hearing. It's about love, betrayal, and the kind of strength that blooms when you least expect it, like daisies in a garden you thought was dead. I set my tea down, the glass sweating in the Georgia heat, and glance at the daisies again. They're small, but they're stubborn, pushing through the dirt to find the sun. That's me, I think. That's what I've done, and as the church bells ring out again, calling folks to Sunday service, I know this is just the beginning. Nathan may live in my old house, but I've got something better, a home, a purpose, and a heart that's finally free. If you're with me so far, honey, I hope you'll stick around to hear the rest. This story's got more twists than a back road in Georgia, and I'd love for you to be part of it. Hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below. Have you ever had to stand up for yourself when no one else would? Share your story with me. I'm listening. The mornings in Macon, Georgia, wrap around you like a warm shawl, the air sweet with dew and the hum of a town just waking up. I'm on my porch, honey, settled in my rocking chair, a glass of jasmine tea steaming in my hands. The daisies along the fence are catching the sunlight, their yellow petals swaying like they're dancing to a hymn. Across the way, my old house stands quiet, its red brick glowing soft. The magnolia tree in the yard, a reminder of days long gone. Nathan's probably in there, sipping coffee, maybe thinking about me. Maybe not, but I'm not chasing his thoughts today. I want to take you back to when that house was my whole world, when Nathan was my little boy, and love felt like it could hold us together forever. That's where the story begins, before the cracks started showing, before I learned that even the deepest love can fray. I was 32 when Tom and I moved to Macon in '78 with a toddler on my hip and dreams bigger than our bank account. We were young, scrappy, and so in love it made my heart ache. Tom was a mechanic, his hands always smudged with grease, his laugh loud enough to fill a room. I worked part-time at the Piggly Wiggly, ringing up groceries with a smile, saving every penny for our future. We bought a red brick house on Oak Street, a modest place with a sagging porch and a roof that leaked in heavy rain. It wasn't fancy, but it was ours, nestled in a neighborhood where folks waved from their yards and kids played tag till dusk. We planted a magnolia tree out front, its sapling roots barely gripping the dirt. "This'll grow with our boy," Tom said, his arm around me as we watched the sunset paint the sky orange. "It'll be here long after we're gone." I leaned into him, believing every word, because back then, I believed in everything. Nathan was our light, a chubby-cheeked boy with Tom's brown eyes and a giggle that could melt the grumpiest neighbor. I'd spend hours in the kitchen, rolling out dough for peach cobbler, while he played on the linoleum floor, stacking blocks or chasing sunbeams. I remember one evening in '82 when he was 5, he tore in from the yard, a daisy clutched in his fist, his face lit up like Christmas. "Mom, look, it's for you," he shouted, thrusting it at me. I tucked the flower behind my ear, kissed his sweaty forehead, and felt like the luckiest woman in Georgia. Those were the days when love was simple, when a daisy and a hug could fix the world. I'd sing him to sleep, old hymns like Amazing Grace, my voice soft against the hum of crickets outside. I thought those days would last forever. But life has a way of teaching you, doesn't it? In '85, Tom got sick lung cancer, the kind that steals your breath and your time. Nathan was 8, too young to understand why his daddy couldn't wrestle with him anymore. I took on extra work, sewing dresses at night after my shifts at the store, my fingers pricked raw by needles. I sold my wedding ring to pay for Tom's medicine. telling myself it didn't matter because love was more than metal. When Tom passed, I stood by that magnolia tree, Nathan's small hand in mine, his tears soaking my skirt. "Don't leave me. Mom," he whispered. I promised I wouldn't, and I meant it. I was 39, a widow, a mother, and I had to be enough for both of us. I poured everything into Nathan. I skipped meals when money was tight, worked doubles to buy his school supplies, and cheered at his baseball games. Even when he struck out, I taught him to drive in the church parking lot. Laughing when he stalled our old Chevy, I pawned my mother's locket to get him a suit for his high school graduation, watching him walk across the stage with a pride that burned brighter than any loss. I never asked for thanks. Honey, I just thought love would come back around. Like the seasons, when it mattered most. I'd sit on the porch some nights, the magnolia tree rustling in the breeze, and dream of the day Nathan would bring his own family home, filling the house with laughter again. Nathan grew up, went to college on a partial scholarship, and came back to Macon with big ideas about starting a tech company. He was ambitious, my boy, with a fire I'd helped kindle. In 2005, he met Lauren, a Savannah girl with golden hair and a smile that charmed everyone but me. Don't get me wrong, she was polite, calling me Miss Ellie, bringing store-bought pies to Sunday dinners. But there was a sharpness in her eyes, like she was always calculating. I tried to like her, for Nathan's sake. I'd invite them over, serve my cobbler, listen to Lauren talk about her job in real estate. Her voice bright, but her words clipped. "This house is so cozy," she'd say, her gaze lingering on the cabinets, the furniture, like she was pricing them in her head. I'd smile, offer her more tea, but I felt at a distance, a coldness I couldn't name. When they got married, I gave them my blessing and a quilt I'd stitched myself, each square a piece of our family's story. I hoped it would keep them warm through life's storms. Their son, Caleb, came along in 2009, and he was a blessing, with Nathan's eyes and a giggle that brought back memories of my boy. I'd babysit him, rocking him in this very chair, singing the same hymns I'd sung to Nathan. I'd tell him stories about his grandpa Tom, about the magnolia tree we'd planted for his daddy. But as the years passed, Nathan drifted, he'd call less, visit only when Lauren nudged him. She'd sit in my kitchen, scrolling her phone, tossing out comments that stung like thorns. "This house must be a lot to keep up." "Miss Ellie," she'd say, her voice sweet but pointed. "All this gardening. At your age, you should rest." I'd laugh it off. But her words lingered, like a chill you can't shake. I should have seen the signs. But love blinds you, doesn't it? I thought Nathan was just busy, chasing his startup dreams, drowning in the stress of bills and ambition. I didn't know he was sinking in debt, or that Lauren was whispering in his ear, turning my home into their way out. I didn't know until that Tuesday in April, when everything shifted. I was in the kitchen, kneading dough for biscuits, the radio playing low. When the room spun, my knees buckled, and I hit the floor, the mixing bowl clattering beside me. It wasn't serious low blood pressure, probably from skipping breakfast, but it shook me enough to call Nathan. He and Lauren showed up that evening, their faces all concern, but something felt off. Lauren hovered, her hands fluttering like nervous moths, while Nathan sat at the table, his eyes fixed on his coffee mug. "Mom, you okay?" he asked, his voice tight, like he was holding something back. "Just a dizzy spell." I said, waving it off, "I'm fine, honey, nothing a glass of water won't fix." Lauren perched on a chair, her nails tapping the table, her smile too perfect. "Miss Ellie, that sounds serious. You can't be alone if this happens again. What if you'd fallen and no one was here?" "I've been alone plenty," I said, keeping my tone light. "I raised you by myself. Nathan, remember I can handle a little faint." Nathan shifted, his jaw clenched. Mom, we're just worried. You're not as young as you used to be. I forced a laugh, hoping to ease the tension. Well, none of us are. Are we? I'll see the doctor, promise. No need to fuss. But Lauren leaned forward, her eyes locking on mine, her voice smooth as glass. We want to help. Miss Ellie, maybe it's time to think about options, a place where you'd be safe, taken care of, options. The word hung heavy, like smoke in a closed room. I felt a chill, despite the spring warmth seeping through the windows. I'm safe right here, I said, my voice firmer than I felt. This is my home. Of course, Nathan said quickly, glancing at Lauren, his hand tightening around his mug. We just want what's best for you. They left soon after, promising to check in. I stood in the kitchen, the biscuit dough forgotten, and looked out at the magnolia tree, its blooms heavy and white. I heard Lauren's voice in my head, her talk of options, and Nathan's silence, louder than any promise. I told myself I was imagining things, that Nathan was still my boy, the one who'd run to me with daisies, who'd hugged me tight at Tom's funeral. But deep down, a question took root. What happens when the ones you love start seeing you as a problem to solve? I didn't have an answer then, honey, but I was about to find out. The days that followed would test me, pulling me from this kitchen to a place I never thought I'd see, where the air smelled of bleach and the walls held no memories. But that's a story for another morning, when the tea's hot and the daisies are listening. I set my glass down, the jasmine tea cool now, and glance at the old house again. The curtains are still, but I know Nathan's in there, carrying the weight of what's to come. I don't hate him, not really. I just wish he'd remembered who I am before it came to this. If you're still with me, honey, I hope you'll stay for the rest of this journey. It's not just about houses or hurt, it's about finding your way back to yourself, no matter how far you've been pushed. Hit that subscribe button and leave a comment below. Has someone ever made you feel like you weren't enough? How did you find your strength? I'd love to hear your story, because we're all growing through something. Aren't we? The Macon, Georgia. Mornings have a way of creeping in soft, like a lullaby you didn't know you needed. I'm on my porch, honey, the rocking chair swaying under me, a glass of jasmine tea warming my palms. The daisies I planted along the fence are stretching toward the sun, their yellow petals bright against the green. Across the strip of grass, my old house sits quiet, its red brick warmed by the light, the magnolia tree in the yard swaying like it's keeping time with my thoughts. I wonder if Nathan's awake, if he's thinking about what he's done. But I don't linger on that. I've spent too many nights chasing his shadow. Today, I want to tell you about the place where I lost myself and where I found the strength to start again. It was a Tuesday in April, not long after that dizzy spell in my kitchen, when Nathan and Lauren showed up at my door. Let's go to lunch. Mom, Nathan said, his smile tight, like it was stitched on. Lauren nodded, her golden hair catching the light, her voice dripping with honey. You deserve a break, Miss Ellie. We're going to spoil you. I didn't think twice. I grabbed my purse, slipped on my worn flats, and left my phone charger on the counter. I didn't know I was leaving my home behind. The drive was quiet, the kind of quiet that feels heavy, like a storm's coming. They pulled into a parking lot on the edge of town, in front of a low beige building with a sign that read Magnolia Grove Care Centre. The name sounded gentle, almost inviting, but the air inside hit me like a wall bleach mixed with something sour, like dreams left to wilt. Plastic flowers sat in a vase on the front desk, their colours too bright, mocking the greyness of the place. A nurse in scrubs greeted us, her smile practiced but not warm. Just a few days. Mom, Nathan said, his hand on my shoulder, his eyes avoiding mine. Rest up, the nurses will take care of you. Lauren leaned in, her lip gloss cold against my cheek as she kissed me. "We'll be back soon," she said, her voice smooth as silk. Then they turned and walked out, their footsteps echoing down the linoleum hall. I stood there, my purse clutched to my chest, feeling like a child dropped off at a stranger's house. The nurse, a young woman with tired eyes and a name tag that read Tammy, led me to a room. It was small, with a single bed covered in a thin blanket, a wooden dresser that smelled of polish, and a window looking out on a chain-link fence. No photos on the walls, no quilt from home, no trace of the life I'd built. Just a sterile hush that made my ears ring. "Mrs. Harper, here's your intake form," Tammy said, handing me a clipboard. I glanced at it, my name. Nathan's signature scrawled at the bottom. Boxes checked for medical consent, residential admission, and observation status. My breath caught. This wasn't a rest stop. He'd signed me away, like I was a package he didn't want to deliver. I looked up at Tammy, my voice trembling but firm. "I need to call my son. He just left." She shook her head. "Visiting hours are tomorrow. You can use the phone then." She hesitated, then added, "Your son said you've been confused. We'll keep an eye on you." Confused. The word landed like a stone in my stomach. I wanted to tell her I wasn't confused, that I'd raised Nathan alone, kept a roof over our heads, beat cancer in 95. But her eyes were already moving to the next task, and I knew arguing wouldn't change the form in her hand. I nodded, sat on the bed, and watched her leave, the door clicking shut behind her. That moment, honey, was when it hit me. I'd given Nathan everything, my youth, my dreams, my heart, and he'd put me here, in a room that smelled of bleach and pity, because he thought I was a burden. I folded my hands in my lap, staring at the floor, and felt my body shake, not from cold, but from a grief so deep it didn't have a name. I thought about Nathan at 8, clinging to me at Tom's funeral, his small voice whispering, "Don't leave me, Mom." I'd promised I wouldn't, and I'd kept that promise, working nights, skipping meals, selling my mother's locket to buy his graduation suit. And now, he'd left me here, without a word, without a choice. That first night, I didn't sleep. I lay on the stiff mattress, the air conditioner humming, the distant coughs of other residents drifting through the walls. I saw Nathan's face in my mind, his boyish grin, the way he'd run to me with a daisy at 5, shouting, "Mom." Look, I wondered where I'd gone wrong. Had I given too much? Made him think I was nothing without him? Had I loved him so fiercely that he forgot I was a person, not just a mother? The questions churned, and I cried, quiet so no one would hear, until the pillow was damp beneath my cheek. Morning came, grey and heavy, the light filtering through the window like it was too tired to shine. I washed my face, smoothed my hair, and asked Tammy to see the administrator. Mrs. Carter was a middle-aged woman with a clipboard and a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "There's been a mistake," I said, sitting across from her in a cramped office. "I'm not sick. I'm not confused. I want to go home." She glanced at Nathan's form, then at me, her pen tapping the desk. "Mrs. Harper, your son expressed concerns about your safety. He mentioned confusion spells, falls. We're here to ensure you're cared for." Cared for? I gripped the chair's arms, my voice rising despite myself. He didn't ask me. He didn't tell me he was signing me away. I raised him, kept our house running, and now he's saying I'm not right in the head. Mrs. Carter's smile faltered, but her voice stayed calm. "We're following his instructions. Long-term placement is in your best interest. Long-term." The words were a door slamming shut. I wanted to scream, to tell her I wasn't some old lady losing her marbles, but I saw the pity in her eyes, the kind that says you're already half gone. And I knew screaming would only prove Nathan right, so I thanked her, my voice tight, and walked back to my room, my flat scuffing the floor. But inside, something sparked. I'd survived Tom's death, cancer, years of scraping by. I wasn't going to let them write the end of my story. That afternoon, I tried calling Nathan. The phone at the front desk rang, then went to voicemail. I tried again, then again, my fingers trembling as I dialed. I called Lauren once, and the line rang, then stopped, blocked. The woman who'd sat in my kitchen, eating my cobbler and complaining about her marriage, had blocked me. I sat in a hard chair by the window, staring at a courtyard where residents shuffled or sat in wheelchairs, some mumbling to themselves, others staring at nothing. Was this my future to fade into a place where no one knew my name? No. I'd fought too hard for that. That night, I asked the night nurse, Jenny, for a notebook. She was kinder than Tammy, with a soft voice and a smile that felt real. I like to journal, I said, forcing a smile of my own. She brought me a spiral pad from the activities closet, its pages yellowed but blank. I sat at the small desk, the fluorescent light buzzing overhead, and started writing. Not poems or prayers, but facts, my bank account numbers, the deed to my house, the name of my lawyer, Vanessa Brooks, who I hadn't spoken to in years, but who'd never dropped me as a client. I wrote dates when Nathan started pulling away, when Lauren began eyeing my house. I wrote conversations, like the one after my dizzy spell. When Lauren's voice turned sharp, I wasn't confused, I wasn't broken, and I sure wasn't done. The next day, I met Dr. Samuel Nguyen, a young doctor with a gentle voice and eyes that saw more than he let on. He came to check my blood pressure, but when he asked how I was feeling, I didn't hold back. I don't belong here, I said, my hands folded in my lap. My son put me here without asking, and I need to get out. He sat across from me, his clipboard resting on his knee. Mrs. Harper, I've seen your chart, you're sharp, no signs of cognitive decline, but the paperwork, it's complicated. Complicated doesn't mean right, I said, leaning forward. I raised Nathan by myself, beat cancer, kept my house running. I'm not ready to be locked away. He nodded, a small smile breaking through. Let's do a cognitive assessment, just to be sure. If you're as clear as I think, it could help your case. That assessment was my first step back. Dr. Nguyen asked me questions, dates, math, memories, and I answered every one. My voice steady as the magnolia tree in my yard. What year was it? 2025. What was my address? 214 Oak Street, Macon, Georgia. Who was president when I was born? Truman. He wrote a report stating I was mentally competent and promised to share it with Vanessa if I could reach her. For the first time in days, I felt hope, like a match flaring in the dark. I called Vanessa the next morning, sneaking to the front desk phone while Mrs. Carter was on break. My heart pounded as the line rang. When she answered, her voice was startled but warm. Ellie, is that you? It's me, I said, gripping the receiver. Vanessa, Nathan's done something awful. He's put me in a nursing home, says I'm not right in the head. He's taken my house, my accounts, everything. I need your help. She paused, then asked, Are you safe? As safe as you can be when your own son locks you away and thinks you won't fight back. I said, my voice cracking but firm. Tell me everything, she said. I poured it out Nathan's lies, Lauren's cold kiss, the form with his signature. She listened, her silence steady, like she was building a case in her mind. You're not staying there, Ellie, she said finally. I'm coming to see you, we'll get you out. I hung up, my hands shaking, but not from fear. For the first time, I felt like I was holding the pen to my own story again. I went back to my room, opened that notebook, and wrote one more line. They thought they buried me. They didn't know I was a seed. Sitting here now, with the Macon sun warming my face, I think about that notebook, tucked away in a drawer in this new house. Its pages hold the facts that brought me back to this porch, to these daisies, to a life I'm rebuilding. I don't know what Nathan's thinking today, or if Lauren's still pulling his strings. But I know this: I'm not the woman I was in that nursing home, crying into a pillow. I'm Ellie Harper, and I'm writing my own ending one daisy at a time. If you're still with me, honey, I hope you're seeing what I'm learning even in the darkest places. There's a spark waiting to catch fire. Stick around for the next part of this story, because it's about to get brighter. Hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below. Have you ever felt like the world gave up on you, but you kept going? Share your spark with me. I'm all ears. The Macon. Georgia sunrise is gentle, painting the sky with streaks of pink and gold, like a promise that today might be kinder than yesterday. I'm on my porch. Honey, the rocking chair swaying softly, a mug of jasmine tea steaming in my hands. The daisies along the fence are in full bloom now, their yellow faces nodding in the breeze, as if they're cheering me on. Across the way, my old house stands silent, its red brick catching the light. The magnolia tree in the yard, a quiet witness to all I've lost and all I'm taking back. Nathan's in there, I reckon, maybe staring at the coffee pot, wondering how it came to this, but I'm not wondering anymore. I'm doing. Today, I want to tell you how I stopped being a shadow in my own story and started writing it again, with a pen that wouldn't quit. After those days in the Magnolia Grove Care Centre, where the walls smelled of bleach and the air felt like surrender, I knew I had to fight. That notebook I told you about, the one I filled with facts and figures, became my lifeline. It held the truth bank accounts, the deed to my house, the name of my lawyer, Vanessa Brooks, and it reminded me who I was. I wasn't just Nathan's mother or Lauren's burden. I was Ellie Harper, 68 years strong, and I wasn't about to let my son's lies bury me. Vanessa came to see me that Friday, driving 3 hours from Atlanta in a rainstorm that turned the roads to rivers. She marched into the nursing home with a briefcase and a fire in her eyes, her heels clicking on the linoleum like a drumbeat. The staff got nervous. Real nervous, I could tell by the way Mrs. Carter, the administrator, pulled her aside, muttering about acting in the client's best interest. Vanessa wasn't having it. She sat across from me in my room, the fluorescent light buzzing overhead, and said, "Ellie, you're not staying here another week. If they give us trouble, we'll sue them too." I took a deep breath, the first one that felt like mine in days. "What do we do?" I asked, my voice steady despite the knot in my chest. She opened her briefcase, pulling out papers. "First, we revoke the power of attorney Nathan forged. He signed it without your consent, which makes it illegal. Second, we file for elder exploitation and misrepresentation of legal documents. Third, we freeze the bank account he's been using to pay his bills, your account." "Ellie." I nodded, my hands folded in my lap. "And the house, still in your name," she said, her eyes locking on mine. "He tried to transfer the deed, but it didn't go through. We'll make sure it stays yours." I felt a spark, like a match catching in the dark. "Let's do it," I said. "All of it." Vanessa grinned, a rare thing for her. "You want to go big?" "Ellie." I looked her dead in the eyes. "No, Vanessa. I want to go biblical." She laughed, and for the first time in weeks, I smiled. We went over everything Nathan's forged signatures. The bank account he thought I'd forgotten, the utility bills he'd switched to his name. I'd never removed him from the joint account, a mistake born of trust. But it meant I still had access. He didn't know that. He thought I was too old, too frail, too gone to notice. But I'd raised a man, survived a marriage, beaten cancer. I wasn't just going to survive this. I was going to win, within days. Vanessa filed an emergency motion to revoke the forged power of attorney. Dr. Samuel Nguyen, the doctor who'd seen the truth in me, submitted his cognitive assessment, stating I showed no signs of dementia. We opened a case against Nathan for elder exploitation, and Vanessa froze the joint account, cutting off the money he'd been using to pay his fancy mortgage. Every step felt like a brick in a wall I was building, not to keep Nathan out, but to keep myself in a wall of dignity, of strength, of Ellie Harper. I left the nursing home on a Wednesday afternoon. No goodbyes, no farewell hugs, just a bag of clothes Vanessa had bought me and a slow walk out the front door. The air smelled of rain and freedom, sweeter than any cobbler I'd ever baked. We didn't go back to my old house. I wasn't ready to face it. Not yet. Vanessa booked us into a private suite at an extended stay hotel on the edge of Macon. A simple place with a kitchenette and a view of the highway. We sat there, eating takeout fried chicken and going over the next steps. "What do you want?" Ellie, she asked, her pen poised over a legal pad. I thought about Nathan, about Lauren's cold kiss, about the house I'd scrubbed clean for decades. "I want my life back," I said. "But not just the house. I want them to know I'm still here. That I matter." Vanessa nodded. "Then let's make them see you." The legal battle wasn't easy. Nathan hired a lawyer, a slick man from Savannah who tried to argue I'd been unstable for years. They brought up my dizzy spell, twisted it into proof I couldn't live alone. But Vanessa was a bulldog, digging up bank records, phone logs, even a text from Lauren to Nathan saying, "Once she's in, we can sell the house." That text was a knife, cutting through their lies. I sat in the lawyer's office, listening to Vanessa argue my case, and felt a strange mix of pride and pain. Pride because I was fighting, pain because it was my son on the other side. While Vanessa worked the legal angle, I knew I needed more than papers to take my life back. I needed Macon to see me, to know I wasn't the confused old lady Nathan had painted me to be. That's where Mrs. Clara Thompson came in. Clara was my neighbor, a widow in her 70s with a sharp tongue and a heart bigger than Georgia. She'd been suspicious of Nathan and Lauren for months, ever since she saw Lauren changing the locks on my house while I was away. Clara came to the hotel one evening, bringing a pan of cornbread and a story. "Ellie," she said, her eyes flashing, "I saw that girl messing with your door the day after they took you. I told her it wasn't right, but she just smiled and said you'd approved it. I knew she was lying." "Clara, you're a godsend," I said, squeezing her hand. "Will you tell Vanessa?" "Already did," she said with a wink. "And I told the ladies at First Baptist, too. They're praying for you, Ellie, and they're not buying Nathan's story. That gave me an idea. Pastor James Wright, who led our church, had been talking about elder rights at Sunday services, warning folks about scams and abuse. I called him, my voice shaking but sure. "Pastor, I need to speak at the next community meeting." I said, "I need to tell my story." He didn't hesitate. "Ellie Harper, you've got a voice, and it's time Macon heard it. Come Sunday, that Sunday." I stood in the church fellowship hall, the air thick with the smell of coffee and homemade biscuits. The room was full neighbors, church ladies, even a few folks I didn't know. My hands trembled as I gripped the podium, but I looked out at those faces and saw Clara nodding, Pastor Wright smiling. "I'm Ellie Harper," I began, my voice soft but growing stronger. "You know me. I've lived on Oak Street for 40 years, raised my boy there, baked cobbler for this church. But my son, Nathan, and his wife, Lauren, put me in a nursing home without my consent. They said I was confused, took my house, my money, my voice. But I'm not confused. I'm here, and I'm fighting for what's mine. The room was quiet, then erupted in murmurs, some shocked, some angry. Clara stood up, her voice ringing. "We are with you, Ellie." Others joined in, clapping, offering prayers. I felt tears prick my eyes, not from sadness, but from the warmth of a community that hadn't forgotten me. That day, I wasn't just Ellie, the widow, the mother. I was Ellie, the woman who wouldn't break. Then there was Caleb, my grandson, who started coming around. He was 14, lanky with Nathan's brown eyes but a heart all his own. The first time he visited the hotel, he stood in the doorway, his backpack slung low, his face a mix of guilt and confusion. "Grandma," he said, his voice small, "they told me you were sick, that you couldn't live alone." I opened my arms and he ran to me, his hug fierce. "I'm not sick, honey," I said, stroking his hair. "I'm right here, and I'm not going anywhere." We sat on the hotel balcony, eating cornbread from Clara, and I told him the truth not to hurt him, but to let him see. "Your daddy made a mistake," I said. "He thought he could decide my life for me. But I'm deciding now." Caleb looked down, his fingers picking at the cornbread. "I'm sorry, Grandma. I should have known." "You're here now," I said, squeezing his hand. "That's what matters." The next day, he came back with a pot of daisies he'd bought with his allowance. "For your new place," he said, his smile shy. We planted them in the hotel's tiny garden, the soil cool under our fingers, and I felt something bloom in me, too. Caleb was my reason to keep going, a reminder that love could still grow, even in cracked ground. With Vanessa's help, we pushed forward. The court ordered Nathan to vacate my house, but he was still fighting, dragging it out with his lawyer. Vanessa suggested a bold move: sell the house. "It's yours." "Ellie," she said, "sell it, take the money, and start fresh. Let them choke on the consequences." I thought about that house, the kitchen, where I'd baked for Nathan, the porch where Tom and I had dreamed, the magnolia tree that held our memories. It hurt to let it go. But I knew Vanessa was right. I wasn't fighting for bricks and mortar. I was fighting for me. We found a buyer, a young couple with kind eyes, who loved the garden and promised to keep the magnolia tree. I signed the papers, the pen steady in my hand, and felt a weight lift. The money was wired to my account, more than enough to start over. That's when I saw the cottage next door to Nathan's house, with a sagging porch and a rose bush out front. It was small, but it faced his kitchen window, a daily reminder that I wasn't gone. I told Vanessa, "That's the one." She raised an eyebrow but didn't argue. "You're something else, Ellie Harper," she said, and we laughed, the sound light as a summer breeze. I think about that laughter now, sitting here with the daisies and the tea. It was the first time I'd laughed since the nursing home, a sign that I was coming back to myself. Nathan doesn't know I've bought the cottage yet, but he will, and when he does, he'll see what I've learned: you can't bury a woman who knows her worth. That's the story I'm telling, honey, and it's just getting started. If you're with me, I hope you're feeling it too, that spark of strength that comes when you stand up for yourself. Stay for the next part, because it's about to get real. Hit that subscribe button and leave a comment below. When was a time you had to fight for your voice? Share it with me. I'm listening. The Macon, Georgia. Sunset slow, like it's lingering to watch the world unfold. I'm on my porch, honey. The rocking chair creaking under me. A glass of jasmine tea gone cool in my hand. The daisies along the fence glow under the fading light. Their yellow petals a quiet defiance against the dusk. Across the strip of grass, my old house is dark, its red brick swallowed by shadows, the magnolia tree standing tall, like it's guarding secrets I used to hold dear. Nathan's in there, I reckon, maybe staring at the walls, feeling the weight of what he's done. Lauren's gone now. Her car missing from the driveway. Her absence louder than any argument. But I'm not here to gloat. I'm here to tell you how I faced my son, how I built a new home, and how I found peace not in revenge, but in reclaiming myself. You remember that morning I told you about, when I sat on this porch, pruning the rose bush, and Nathan saw me for the first time. That was the moment everything changed, the moment he realized I wasn't gone. But let me take you back there, honey, and fill in the details, because that day wasn't just about a house or a fence. It was about a mother standing up, a heart breaking open, and a future I hadn't dared to dream. It was a Saturday, the air thick with the hum of cicadas and the distant chime of First Baptist bells. I'd moved into the cottage 3 days before. My suitcase unpacked, my old rocking chair settled on the porch. The rosebush out front was tangled, but I liked it that way, wild, like me. I'd spent the morning planting more daisies, their roots sinking into the Georgia clay, and I was pruning the roses when Nathan stepped outside. He wore a wrinkled t-shirt and gym shorts, a trash bag in one hand, his phone in the other. He looked worn, the kind of worn that comes when you've built a life on sand and watched it crumble. When he saw me, he froze, his eyes wide, like he'd seen a ghost. "Mom." His voice broke, raw and small, like the boy who'd once asked me to chase away his nightmares. What? What are you doing here?" I set the pruning shears down, wiped my hands on my apron, and leaned against the porch railing. The wood was warm under my palms, grounding me, living. "Nathan," I said, my voice steady. "This is my house now." He dropped the trash bag, the plastic rustling as it hit the ground. "You bought the house next door." Why I tilted my head, letting the question hang like a cloud between us. "You took my home, Nathan. You locked me away in that place, thinking I'd fade like an old quilt. But I'm still here, and I'm not going anywhere." His face flushed, a mix of shame and defiance. "Mom, it wasn't like that. We were trying to help you. You weren't safe." "Safe," I cut him off, my voice low, sharp as a paring knife. "You didn't ask me what I wanted. You didn't call, didn't visit. You signed papers that said I was losing my mind. Nathan, you took my keys, my bank account, my dignity. And you call that help." He opened his mouth, then closed it, his eyes dropping to the grass. Behind him, the kitchen curtains twitched Lauren, watching, but too proud to step out. I could feel her there, her shadow cold even in the morning heat. "Mom, Nathan rubbed the back of his neck, his voice faltering. "Can we talk inside?" "This porch is fine," I said, crossing my arms. "Say what you need to say." He looked at me, searching for the mother who'd once forgiven him with a hug and a slice of peach cobbler. But that mother had learned to love herself as much as she loved him. "I didn't mean to hurt you," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. I thought it was the right thing." I took a slow sip of tea, the jasmine lingering on my tongue. "You didn't just hurt me, Nathan. You tried to erase me. You and Lauren decided I was done, that my life was yours to take, but this house, this porch, these daisies, they're mine. Every time you step outside, you'll see me, and you'll remember." He stood there, silent, the church bells fading into the distance. I turned, walked to my front door, and paused. "This is my peace, Nathan," I said over my shoulder. "Don't knock unless you're ready to earn your way back into it." I closed the door, the soft click louder than any shout. Inside, I leaned against the wall, my heart pounding, not with anger, but with a fierce pride. I'd faced my son, and I hadn't backed down. That moment set everything in motion. Nathan didn't come back that day, or the next, but I saw the way he avoided looking at my porch, the way Lauren parked her car on the far side of the driveway, like she could pretend I wasn't there. I kept busy, painting the cottage's walls a soft cream, hanging a wind chime that sang in the breeze. I started painting again, too, something I hadn't done since Tom died. My first piece was the magnolia tree, its branches heavy with blooms, but I painted it from memory, not from Nathan's yard. It was mine now, in a way he couldn't take. Caleb came by that week, his backpack slung low, his eyes bright but wary. "Grandma," he said, standing on the porch, "is it true you bought this place to mess with Dad?" I laughed, a real laugh, and pulled him into a hug. "No, honey, I bought it to live, to remind myself and your daddy that I'm still here." He nodded, kicking at the porch floor. "I'm glad you're here. It's better with you around." We sat on the porch, sharing a plate of cornbread Clara had dropped off, and I told him about the nursing home, not to hurt him, but to help him understand. "Your daddy made a mistake," I said, brushing crumbs from my lap. "But you and me, we're building something new." He looked at me, his eyes serious. "Can I help with the garden? Maybe deal," I said, ruffling his hair. The next day, we planted more daisies, the soil cool under our fingers, and I felt a warmth I hadn't known in months. Caleb was my anchor, a reminder that love could still grow, even in a heart that had been trampled. But Nathan and Lauren didn't take it quietly. A week after our porch talk, Vanessa called with news. "They're fighting the sale of the house," she said. "Nathan's lawyer claims you were coerced into selling, that you're not in your right mind." I gripped the phone, my jaw tight. "Let them try," I said. "We've got Dr. Nguyen's report, Clara's testimony, and the truth." Vanessa pushed back hard, presenting evidence of Nathan's fraud, the forged power of attorney, the bank transfers, Lauren's text about selling the house. The court sided with us, finalizing the sale. The young couple who bought it moved in, their laughter filling the yard where Nathan once played. I met them at the closing, shaking their hands, wishing them well. "Take care of the magnolia tree," I said, my voice catching. They promised they would, and I believed them. The money from the sale gave me more than the cottage. It gave me freedom. But freedom came with a price. Nathan came to the porch a few days later, hat in hand, his eyes red-rimmed. "Mom," he said, his voice low. "I'm sorry, I messed up. I thought I was doing the right thing." I stood in the doorway, my arms crossed. "You thought getting rid of me was the right thing," I asked, my voice quiet but sharp. "You took my home. Nathan, you lied to Caleb, to the neighbors, to yourself. You don't get to say sorry and make it disappear." His shoulders sagged, and for a moment, I saw the boy I'd raised, the one who'd given me daisies and promises. But that boy was gone, buried under choices he couldn't undo. "I was scared," he said, his voice breaking. "I was in debt, losing everything. Lauren said, I don't care what Lauren said." I interrupted. "You're the one I raised. You let her put me in a box before I was even gone." He looked away, tears glinting in his eyes. "Can we fix this?" I took a deep breath, the air heavy with the scent of roses. "I forgive you." "Nathan," I said, "because holding on to anger hurts me more than it hurts you. But forgiveness doesn't mean trust. You've got work to do, and it's not on this porch." I closed the door, my heart heavy but sure. I didn't cry. I went to my easel, picked up a brush, and painted a field of daisies under a Georgia sky, bright and unyielding. Lauren left soon after. I saw her drive away, her car packed with boxes, her face set in a hard line. She sent me a letter, her handwriting shaky. "Miss Ellie, I was wrong. I thought I was protecting my family. But I broke yours. I'm sorry." I read it, folded it, and put it in a drawer. I didn't reply. Her words were too late, and I was too busy living. Caleb moved in with me, his room filled with books and sketches. We cooked together, made cornbread and collards, and I taught him to paint. One evening, he showed me a drawing a woman with silver hair, standing under a magnolia tree. "It's you, Grandma," he said, his smile shy. "The strongest person I know." I hugged him, tears pricking my eyes. "You're my strength, honey," I said. And I meant it. I started giving back, too. I donated to the church's senior outreach program, helping women like me who'd been pushed aside. Pastor Wright invited me to speak at a community seminar, and I stood before a room of faces, mostly women my age, and told my story. "They'll call you old. A burden," I said, my voice steady. "But you're not done. You're a seed, waiting to grow." They clapped, some cried, and one woman hugged me, whispering, "Thank you for reminding me I'm still here, sitting here now, with the stars peeking through the Macon sky." I think about that day on the porch, when I faced Nathan and chose myself. It wasn't about winning. It was about living, really living, with daisies in the garden and Caleb's laughter in the house. Nathan's still next door, but he's a shadow now, not my son. And I'm okay with that, because I've found my own light. If you're still with me, honey, I hope you're feeling it, that quiet power that comes when you choose yourself. One more part to this story, and it's about peace, legacy, and a love that lasts. Hit that subscribe button and leave a comment. When did you find your light? Share it with me. I'm listening. The Macon, Georgia. Evenings settle soft, like a quilt draped over the world, the sky bruising purple as the stars begin to wink. I'm on my porch, honey, the rocking chair swaying under me, a glass of jasmine tea resting on the armrest, its steam curling into the cooling air. The daisies along the fence are silhouettes now, their yellow petals folded for the night, but they're still there, rooted deep in the Georgia clay. Across the way, my old house is a shadow, its red brick barely visible, the magnolia tree standing sentinel, its leaves whispering memories I've learnt to hold lightly. Nathan's gone, his car missing from the driveway, the house empty save for echoes. Caleb's inside, humming to himself as he washes dishes, his laughter a melody I never tire of. This is my home now, not just the cottage, but the piece I've carved out, one daisy, one day, at a time. I've told you about the battles, honey, about the nursing home that tried to steal my voice, about facing Nathan on this very porch, about buying this house to remind him I'm still here. But today, I want to tell you about what came after, about the quiet victories, the love that grew where hurt once lived, and the legacy I'm leaving, not just for Caleb, but for women like me, who've been told they're too old to matter. This is the end of my story, but it's also a beginning. Because at 68, I've learned that life doesn't stop, it blooms. If you let it. It's been 3 months since Lauren left, her car packed with boxes, her letter of apology tucked away in my drawer. Nathan stayed a while longer, a ghost in the house I'd built, his lights flickering at odd hours, his silhouette slumped on the porch steps some nights. I'd see him from my window, nursing a beer, staring at the stars, and part of me ached for the boy. He'd been the one who'd given me daisies, who'd promised to build me a big house one day. But that boy was gone, lost to choices he couldn't undo. One morning, a faded for sale sign went up in his yard, crooked like it was ashamed to be there. A week later, he was gone. No goodbye, no note. Neighbors said he moved to Florida, chasing a job or maybe just running from himself. I don't know, and I don't need to. His silence isn't mine to carry anymore. Caleb, though, he's mine in a way I never expected. He's practically moved in, his sneakers by the door, his sketchbooks scattered on the kitchen table. He's 14, all legs and dreams, with Nathan's brown eyes, but a heart that's kinder, softer. We've built a rhythm here. a life that feels like home. Mornings, we tend the garden, planting tomatoes and marigolds alongside the daisies, the soil cool under our fingers. Evenings, we cook collards with bacon, cornbread from Clara's recipe, peach cobbler when the fruit's in season. I teach him the old songs, the ones Tom used to hum, and he listens, his head tilted, like he's storing them for later. One night, as we sat on the porch, the air thick with the scent of honeysuckle, Caleb turned to me, his voice quiet. "Grandma, why didn't you hate Dad?" After everything, I set my tea down, the glass clinking against the armrest. I wanted to. "Honey," I said, looking at the stars. "But hate's a heavy thing. It had hurt me more than him. I forgave him, not for his sake, but for mine, so I could live." He nodded, his eyes distant. "I miss him, but I'm glad I'm here." I reached for his hand, squeezing it. "Me too, baby, me too." Caleb's my joy, but he's also my mirror, showing me the parts of myself I'd forgotten. He joined the youth gardening club at school, coming home with plans for a vegetable patch. "We'll grow our own food." "Grandma," he said, his grin wide. I laughed, handed him a shovel, and we got to work. He started painting too, learning from me. His first piece was a sketch of me under the magnolia tree, my hair silver, my smile strong. "You're the toughest person I know," he said, handing it to me. I hung it in the living room, right above the fireplace, and every time I see it, my heart cracks open a little, letting in more light. But this story isn't just about me and Caleb. It's about Macon, about the community that held me up when I couldn't stand alone. Clara Thompson, my neighbor, still drops by with cornbread and gossip, her laughter a balm. Pastor James Wright calls me Macon's warrior, though I tell him I'm just Ellie, doing what I had to. The church ladies send me cards, thanking me for speaking at that seminar, for reminding them they're not invisible. I've become a voice here, not because I wanted to, but because I had to, because too many women like me are locked away, their stories untold. That's why I started the Harper Legacy Grant. I took part of the money from the house sale, $50,000, and gave it to the community center for a fund to help older women in crisis. Women like me, who've been called a burden, who've had their homes or their voices taken. The grant pays for legal aid, transportation, even small things like a new quilt or a bus pass. Pastor Wright announced it at church, and the applause was so loud I felt it in my bones. "This is Ellie's gift," he said, "but it's for all of us." I didn't cry then, but later, on this porch, I did tears of gratitude for a life that still had purpose. Caleb helped me deliver the first check. "Why not put your name on it?" he asked, his brow furrowed. "Because the women who need it don't care who gave it," I said, smiling. "They just need to know someone did." He nodded, thoughtful, and I saw something in him, a spark of the man he'll become. One who understands that love isn't about credit, but about giving. He started writing about it too. A few weeks ago, he showed me an essay for school, about what happened to me, about the nursing home and the fight to come back. "I want people to know, Grandma," he said, "so it doesn't happen to someone else." The essay got published in the Macon Telegraph, and when I read it, I cried again, not for pain, but for pride. Caleb's my legacy, too. A boy who's learning to stand for what's right. I've changed my will, too. Vanessa helped me draft it, neat and notarized, to reflect what I want. The cottage goes to Caleb when he's 21, along with a trust fund for his education and whatever dreams he chases. The rest of my estate retirement savings, insurance money. What's left from the house sale goes to the Harper Legacy Grant. Nathan gets nothing, not a penny. Vanessa told him when he asked for a copy of the estate plan, her voice calm but firm. "You're not included," she said, and I could almost hear his silence, heavy as a stone. He called me that night, his voice tight. Mom, is this real? You're cutting me out. I stood in my kitchen, the smell of cornbread in the oven, and answered, You cut yourself out, Nathan, when you signed me away like luggage. You didn't just fail me, you erased me, and now you're learning what that feels like. I'm sorry, he said, his voice breaking. I know, I said, and I've forgiven you. But forgiveness doesn't mean inheritance. I hung up, my hand steady, and went back to my painting a field of daisies under a Georgia sky, bright and free. That was the last time we spoke. A month later, Nathan moved, quiet as a whisper. No U-Haul, no goodbye. The for sale sign came down, and the house sat empty, a shell of what it once was. I don't know where he is now. Florida, maybe, or somewhere else. Chasing a life he thinks he can rebuild. I wish him well, but I don't carry his weight anymore. My heart is lighter, filled with Caleb's laughter, the scent of marigolds, the hum of Macon evenings. I've found peace here, in this cottage, in this life I've made. I paint every day now, small canvases of flowers, skies, the magnolia tree I carry in my heart. I bake for the church, volunteer at the community centre, sit with women who need someone to listen. I'm not at the end of anything. Honey, I'm at the beginning, and it's more beautiful than I ever imagined. Last week, I spoke at the community centre's Elder Justice Seminar, standing before a crowd of women, most over 60. Their eyes tired but hungry for hope. They'll call you old, a burden. I said, my voice clear. They'll try to steal the life you built. But you're not done. You're a seed, waiting to grow. Use your voice, your truth, your law. You're still here, and you matter. They clapped, some cried. One woman hugged me, whispering, Thank you for reminding me I'm not crazy. That's what this is about, not revenge, but legacy, making sure no one else is left in a room that smells of bleach and pity. As I sit here, the stars bright above Macon, I think about that magnolia tree, still standing in the yard next door. It's not mine anymore, but its roots are deep in the soil of my story. I'm Ellie Harper, and I've learned that peace isn't about getting what you wanted. It's about knowing what you're worth and living it every day, with daisies in the garden and love in your heart. If you've come this far, honey, I hope you're carrying a piece of this story with you, that spark of knowing you're enough. No matter what the world says, this is the end of my tale. But I'd love for you to share yours. Hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below. What's made you feel alive lately? What's your legacy? I'm listening. And I'm rooting for you, just like those daisies in my garden.